I'm an 18-year-old driver with 0 years, no claim bonus, and this is how I managed to insure my 2-litre Hyundai Coupe for only £1,500. This may seem like a lot to some of you, but for me, whose last car was a 1.3-litre Mazda that cost £2,400 to insure, this is very, very cheap. In this video, we're first going to compare two different types of cars to show you why choosing the right car matters, and then we're also going to look at the tips that you can do when filling out your application form to lower your prices. But first, what is insurance? So insurance is a legality in the UK to be able to drive on the roads. You can't drive unless you're insured, otherwise you'll get pulled over, slapped with a fine and probably your car seized. So there's three types. There's comprehensive, third party, and third party fire and theft. Comprehensive covers everything, third party only covers the other car in an accident. Third party fire and theft covers other cars in an accident, but also yours with fire or theft. Now, I think that insurance companies are just a total scam. Fair enough if you get paid out, but most of the time you're paying more than what your car's worth, and hopefully you wouldn't crash. And it's got to the point where if you do crash, it is cheaper to just write off your car yourself and buy a new one than go for insurance and then face the increased rates the next years. So let's get into it. So these are the specs for the Ford Fiesta that I've looked up insurance for. It's 118 brake horsepower, 9-second 0 to 60. So it's reasonably fast. And then here's the one for the Polo. It's a much lower 88 brake horsepower with a slower 11-second 0 to 60. So now if we run insurance quotes for both of the cars with the exact same information put into both, other than the reg plate obviously, this is what we get. So first, let's do the slower one, the Volkswagen Polo. That's here. And now we'll do the Fiesta. Now if you're thinking, oh, it must be more expensive, no, you're wrong. It's almost half the price. Now this just doesn't make sense. The Fiesta makes more power, it's quicker, it's also got half the voluntary excess, so if you crash you have to pay less out of pocket. The only reason that I can think this is because of the crash data, maybe. So it might just be that more young drivers my age crashing in a Polo than a Fiesta, which to be fair I thought they'd be similar, which is why I chose them two cars. But yeah, and that is what heavily influenced me on the Hyundai Coupe, because I've seen barely any of them, let alone people my age driving them. So now with this in mind, my quote for the Hyundai Coupe was £1,500, with it being 144 brake horsepower, which I don't think it's bad at all, especially for a sporty looking car. Big 2-litre engine, sounds nice, looks nice. I think it's a win-win. So let's get into the part that you all came here for. What can you do to lower your quotes? What did I do to lower mine? So let's use this as a starting quote and we'll work our way down from there. So the things that I won't be changing to make this a fair comparison is any of the car make and model information, as well as the car value when I bought the car usage, and the mileage is going to stay the same at £10,000. That £5,000 quote you saw was also with a black box, because without a black box it was £9,400. So I'll also keep that the same, it's with a black box. However, the insurance that I have right now is not with a black box and it's £1,500. So at the end I'll show you without a black box as well. Right, so starting with car storage, we've got the daytime storage just in an open public car park. I think that's fine, I'll just leave it as that because I want to be truthful about that, I think it will be. And then nighttime storage, it was in drive. However, for some reason, if you change it to on the street outside of home, it's cheaper. I'm not sure why. And yes, it's kept at home overnight. Employment you can change. So, currently I'm employed as a shop assistant in a food store. However, I'm also a full-time student at uni, so for some reason it is cheaper to be classed as a student living at home, or living away from home when you go back to uni, I suppose. So I would change that from your actual job to a student. And this is where it's weird as well, because depending on your job, it changes how expensive your insurance is. And then the next thing is going to be your policy. Now this is probably where you'll see the biggest savings. So the sweet spot for me was 2 people. When I added a third, it started going up instead of down. So if I was you, I'd put both your parents on it, or if not, put one of your parents and a grandparent. They never have to drive it, they just have to have the name on the policy. So just 2 adults that you know that have never had convictions driving anything. Now on the car owner section, it's a tricky one, because for the main driver, obviously you'd put yourself if you are the main driver. However, to get it like bottom of the barrel cheap, you could put one of your parents, but that's classed as fraud unless they are actually the main driver. So for me, I didn't want to risk it, or it wasn't worth the difference to me, so I've put me as the main driver. And then your cover, another important one. Third party only is the base level. Third party fire and theft is the middle, and then comprehensive surely is the top as it covers everything. However, comprehensive isn't the most expensive one. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. So I'm choosing comprehensive because it'll lower the price and it covers everything. Voluntary excess, this is up to you here, because if you put 0, that means if you crash you pay nothing, but your overall insurance for the year might be more expensive. Whereas if you put 500, then you have to pay 500 if you crash, but your overall price might not be as expensive. However, for me, the difference was minimal, so I only put 250 quid, I think it was, as voluntary, because that lowered it, but then anything more than that, it lowers it by like a tenner, so it's not really worth it. Again, payment preference is up to you. If you've got the money, obviously do it outright because it's so much cheaper, but you can do monthly instalments. Now for my Hyundai Coupe, I bought everything outright other than the tax, because that was an extra 400 quid. But on my first car, I didn't have enough for the yearly payment, so what I did was I got my granddad to buy it, and then I just paid him back in chunks, which saved me about 400 quid. Then really the last tip, and again maybe the biggest one, is your policy start date. Now this changes all the time. So my first car, it was like £1,000, maybe £2,000 cheaper if I waited for 21 days after I submitted my application to start the policy. However, when I was buying my Hyundai Coupe, I think it was 90 quid difference between if I insured it on the same day or if I waited 21 days. And then obviously if I wait 21 days to drive it back home from the place I bought it from, you have to have temporary insurance, which for me was £260 for a day. So it just worked out way cheaper to buy the policy on the day that I've bought the car. So that is one that you're going to have to play around. I found as well that Sundays were cheaper, stuff like that, but also like the time of day that you apply for it. There's all these little tweaks you can make, but they're the big ones that we've gone over. So now let's see the final price. £1,000, just shy of. And that is amazing, isn't it? So we've saved over £4,000, and we've not lied about anything. We've not really changed anything that much. We've just played the game. So yeah, great saving. Now this is without a black box, so quite a bit more expensive, £2,000 and a bit, but on that one, that means we've saved £7,000 from the 9,000 no black box quote. Now mine is 1,500, which again just shows that depending on the time that you do it, it just changes the quote completely, because I got my original quote from Compare the Market as well. So I'm not sure why it's gone up by £600 in this span of 2 months. But yeah, so that's all for today. If you've got any more questions, put them in the comments. Thank you.